Well, thank you guys for hosting all of this so that we can get connected easier to each other in this small but big town of ours and figure out how to help our patients or clients in the best way possible. So thank you, really. I'm excited to come in, and thanks everybody for joining today. I am going to talk a little bit about nurturing parenting and kind of like how that came to be and for me and really for a lot of our community. And then I also wanted to start off with a little bit of how we manage big emotions with little kids, because working for the last 18 years in like case management and behavioral health support with families here in this town, one of the biggest things I get from parents all the time is like, oh, my kids are freaking out. I don't know how to handle their big behaviors. So I thought we would start with just some general information on how we handle those big behaviors, so you can at least feel confident in passing that information along to any parents that you're working with. And it's probably a lot of stuff you guys know because you are all wonderfully smart, intelligent people, but maybe we'll learn something new. If you have any questions, please feel free to jump in and interrupt me and just unmute yourself and say, hey, wait, what about this? I do not mind that at all. I work well with that. You are also welcome to save it to the end if that works better for you, but I am fine with interruptions, so feel free if that works for you. I'm gonna get on the right here. Okay, so managing big emotions. We're gonna start with that really fun tidbit today, because it is the biggest thing. Parents will come up to me all the time and just like, I don't know what to do. My kid's freaking out, and then I'm freaking out because I'm getting upset, or God Almighty, do our kids know how to push our buttons better than anybody in this world, especially if we have teenagers. They're real fun about that. And so this is one of the things that I learned. It is something that absolutely works really well with kids. I would argue these same skills apply for pretty much everybody. I really learned this because I work with kids a lot and I manage their big emotions and their big behaviors. And I'm currently a behavioral health case manager at Front Street Clinic, where we work predominantly with a homeless and unhoused population of people. And sometimes in substance use and all that stuff, sometimes we have people who come in with rather big emotions, adults who come in with rather big emotions as well. And I use these same tools generally with adults as I do with kids, and it works very, very well without feeling pedantic and silly. So the first thing that we want to think about when we're talking about big emotions, right, is that simple window of tolerance. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. We all have this window of tolerance, and that's going to shift every day in every single way as far as what we can manage and what we can't manage. If I'm really, really stressed out because there's all this work stress going on, and then my mom is really sick and I'm trying to deal with her health care, and then my kid is like blowing up at school and I've got all these demands on me, my window of tolerance obviously is going to shrink. The same goes for our kids. Their window of tolerance when they start off, because they're kids and they haven't learned how to deal with these things, is already much smaller than an adult's window of tolerance. And what we as parents can do, and what I tell every single parent when they come in and are asking me, how do I help my kid? What do I do? How does this work? Is you know your kid best. You are the expert on your child. I can give you some background information and things about what to do, but you are going to know what works for your kid and what doesn't. So like, let me know that, and then I can help you work around that. But you know when your kid is going into hyper or hypoarousal. And I'll talk to parents about that window of tolerance and what it looks like for kids, some kids, to go into hyperarousal versus hypoarousal and how to catch that. And what we want to do as parents when we're dealing with big emotions is catch it as soon as we can that our kid is outside of their window of tolerance, right? They've already gone into hypo or hyperarousal, and they're either having big behaviors, or on the flip side, they're completely shut down and they're not engaging, and they're not looking at us and they're not talking to us and they're just shut down. Either way, it shows up, it's hard to deal with and it's hard to know how to help them with. And we want to recognize when they're outside of that window of tolerance. As soon as we recognize that they're outside of that window of tolerance, especially with kids, the first thing we want to do is remember the 3 R's. The 3 R's are what helps our kids kind of get through this, and that starts with regulate. This is going to be the same, like I said, for adults as kids. The first thing you want to do is regulate. An adult who has some skills and has done this can usually regulate their own behavior. Our teenagers might have some regulation skills that they already know. You can say, like, why don't you go listen to some music and calm down? Like, take some deep breaths, whatever it is that you know works for your kid to help them regulate. For little kids, that regulate is going to be co-regulate because they haven't learned how to regulate themselves. And they need us as parents to step in and teach them how we can regulate that. And we can do that in a myriad of different ways. You know yourself best, you know your kids best, and you're going to be able to figure out what works for you to regulate. Teach that to your kids. Do that process with them. What works for our kids? Maybe you have a kid who's like super clingy and likes a lot of physical touch, and that helps them feel loved and supported. Okay, so then you're gonna like give that kid back rubs or hugs or touch their body in some way to help them regulate. Maybe you have a kid who just likes to have some alone time. So, you say to them, okay, why don't you go sit in your room and just take a breath and calm down, and it's okay. Maybe you have a kid who just wants to get those emotions out. So we teach them the appropriate ways that they can do that. You can't hit other people. You can't scream obscenities at other people. But you know what? If you're mad and you're upset, I'm okay with you screaming into a pillow. Or if you want to scream, you can go into your room and shut the door and scream whatever you want all by yourself. Make it safe for them to be able to regulate. They're going to learn how to do that through you. Younger kids, like I said, it's co-regulate. Older kids, you can tell them to regulate. Adults, kids, doesn't matter who it is. The first step is we got to regulate. Some of us, even as adults, haven't learned how to regulate. So if you're a parent or you're dealing with a parent who doesn't themselves know how to regulate and get themselves back into that window of tolerance, the first thing you're going to do with them is help them learn how to regulate their own body so that they can pass that on to their kids. The second thing that we do with the 3 R's is relate, right? We're going to relate to our kids. That could be validating it. For little kids, it doesn't even have to be validation. It can just be some way to connect with our kids. I do this all the time, even with my teenagers. I've got an 18 and a 20-year-old. And the other day, my 20-year-old and I got into a little altercation on the phone, and he had some very big emotions and he was very upset. And the first thing I do, because I know he needs space, is I said, okay, you're upset. I'm going to give you some space. I'm going to hang up the phone right now. I'll call you back in like an hour. So I did that and I gave him space and let him regulate himself. Then I called him back. And before I did anything, I said, hey, how's it going? What's your day like? Did you get any sleep? Like, tell me a funny video, or I watched this funny video. Did you get the text message? Because I sent him like a funny video that he would like on text message so that I could connect with him and he could feel like I'm on his side and I'm part of his team so that we're not fighting against each other. So we're going to regulate, then we're going to relate, and then we can reason. If we don't stop and regulate and then relate, we're not going to reach that learning brain and help our kids reason so that those big emotions and big behaviors don't continue to happen. Right? It was the same thing with my 20-year-old this weekend. He had some big emotions. I had to help him regulate by just like not engaging with him and giving him space. I had to help relate with him and connect with him to build that up. And then I was able to talk through with him what the heck was going on. He was very upset about people other than me treating him in a certain way. And then he felt like I was doing that too immediately, but he would not have made that connection and understood what was going on if I didn't stop immediately as the parent and step in and help him regulate and then connect with him so that I could reach that learning brain and talk to him about it. And then he was able to understand, like, oh, I'm actually really pissed at my girlfriend, not at you, Mom. It's not fair to take that out on you. But we had about 7 failed attempts to have that conversation before because I didn't stop and regulate, relate, and reason with him because I failed myself, even though I know I need to be doing this. Doesn't always happen in the best of intentions. The other thing I wanted to share with you guys, if you haven't seen it before, because it's so helpful with kids, is I love to show them this emotion sensation wheel. I don't know if you guys have seen it before, but it really works really well with kids or adults who don't understand what that window of tolerance is and don't understand what those feelings are because they haven't learned that. Because it shows some emotions in the middle, but on the outside, it tells us what that can look like oftentimes in people's bodies. And that can be a lot easier for kids. So my kids, when they were first learning about how to figure out what kind of emotions they were feeling, they were so disconnected, they couldn't figure out that they were happy or sad or fearful or angry or anything like that. But they could identify with the fact that they felt steady or jumpy, or their jaw was dropping, or their heart was racing, and see if that was the thing that then cued into an emotion better. And so this is one of those, we all know there's a million different emotion wheels that are really, really nice to look at. But I find this particular one really, really good with people who are either children and haven't had a chance to learn what their emotions are and how those are, or for adults who just never have been able to do that work and connect with that. So that is my tidbit of information that I always do with parents when they come up to me and they're like, my kid's driving me crazy and there's all these big emotions and what do I do? That's the first thing I talk about is window of tolerance. How does that work? How do you get yourself out of that? And then regulate, relate, and reason. It works so well for everybody. So that's that. But on to nurturing parenting. A little bit about myself. So like I said, I've been working in this kind of field with families for like 18 years in Juneau, in various different roles. And during that time period, I have obviously met lots of kids and had OCS on my case many times to become a foster parent and take in kids. And I was teaching parenting classes years ago before I became a parent. And I knew it was hard. I knew it would be hard. I didn't think it would be that hard. I then met 2 kids. They stole away my heart in a lot of big ways, and they ended up, unfortunately, in a situation where they didn't have caregivers or anybody to look after them. And so I stepped in and got legal custody and then later adopted them. And they're 18 and 20 now, which is so fun, which is also why I probably look way too young to have kids that old, hopefully. Fingers crossed. But I thought, hey, I've been working in this field. I have been working with troubled kids my entire life. I know all the resources in town. I know all the things. I can step up and do this. It will not be that hard for me. And boy, oh boy, was I absolutely freaking wrong on that one. It was intensely hard for me. It was so hard to become a parent out of nowhere. Like, we all know that's hard when those first few months when baby's back in the house or when we adopt a kid. It's rough. I'm not saying it's not. I knew that it was going to be rough. What I didn't count on was what I felt like there was a lot of support in the community for parents. And I came to find there was not any support for parents kind of trying to figure out, how do I manage my kid's whole trauma history? How do I deal with their high ACEs scores? How do I reestablish things when OCS has come in and taken my kids away because of past mistakes, and I've worked in fixing those things, but then there's all this trauma that's showing up in the house because my kids were ripped out and put in foster care, and all these bad things happen, and there was just not the support that I thought there was going to be. And in the past 5 years, I've been working as like their kind of guardian for 8 years now, and in that time period I've just like been really gung-ho about making sure that other parents who are maybe dealing with similar situations will have support where I didn't find that. Part of that for me was getting a facilitator's certificate for nurturing parenting. I looked at a million different parenting programs. I'm also certified in social circles of security parenting. I love that. I got certified in parenting with love and logic too. Did not like that one so much. I've done a lot of different parenting curriculums. I have explored them all to try to figure out what it is that's missing in this community. Circles of Security is fantastic. I cannot say much else about it other than it's fabulous. It's great for kids under the age of 5. It can be really hard for a lot of parents to understand how those situations and those things apply to our teenagers or to our 8-year-old or to our 12-year-old or whatever. And stepping up and seeing how that shows up for our teenagers is not something that is typically covered in Social Security. It's all Circles of Security. It's all videos of like toddlers doing things that you can very well see these things happening, and it doesn't really help. I've heard from a lot of parents who have older kids, this is great, this is wonderful. I don't see how that's showing up in my 14-year-old. I don't understand how that works. And so I did a lot of research, and I came across Nurturing Parenting, and that was the thing that sold me. I talked to many different facilitators down south who were working with Nurturing Parenting and what that was like. I liked a few things right off the bat. It does some training in dealing with like OCS and court and being called in to testify or having to write letters to the court to support why reunification should or shouldn't happen or whether a parent is good or not. The other thing that really, the big thing that drew me to Nurturing Parenting is that it is entirely relationship based. It's my job to go in there and create a relationship with these families to really work on change, because if I don't have a relationship, I'm not going to get that buy-in for that change. And Nurturing Parenting is all about getting that together and helping that out. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But in the years that have since happened, because I have gotten trained now and I have talked to many other programs who are looking at different parenting programs and trying to decide what parenting programs to send their staff to and get them trained in and all that kind of stuff. It's actually kind of exploded. Now in Juneau, Front Street Clinic here at SEARHC is offering Nurturing Parenting. The Tribe is offering Nurturing Parenting. Bartlett Beginnings and Hello Baby is just got certified. Their staff just got certified as well, and they're going to be offering that. Jammy Family is offering Nurturing Parenting. So it's really kind of taking off all over, and a lot more people are getting trained in it. I'm thinking as I talk to these people about it, and it's because it is for kids from birth until, they're 25. It's the whole age range. It's not just one specific time. If you are working with parents and families and you are not a parent yourself, that can be a little bit hard. A lot of parents, my buy-in from parents when I said I have kids at home goes a lot higher. They're a lot more willing to listen to me because I have kids. I get it. And if you don't have kids, if you can connect them with working with somebody who does have kids, because you're not getting through, if you find that kind of stonewall, that can be a really good way to try to connect them on things. That's not to say that I didn't do awesome, amazing work before I became a parent. I did, and I was able to get that buy-in. You can do that too with your parents, but some parents I did notice just weren't going to listen to me because I'm not a parent. And sometimes that happens with some parents. And in those cases, I would say it's really good to try to connect them with other people in town who are doing this, and then who are also maybe parents, if you are not yourself. But nurturing parenting, as we said, it's evidence-based, it's trauma-informed. For me, that was the big one. I did Parenting with Love and Logic. I would say that curriculum is nowhere near trauma-informed at all. And that was my big hang up with it. I did not like some of the recommendations. Yes, there were good parts of Parenting with Love and Logic, recognizing when you're getting upset, taking time for yourself, really putting yourself first as a parent to make sure that you have it within you to take care of your kids. Those are all great things. But they also were not trauma informed and would say, you know, if your kid's throwing a fit at the store, you call this person and have them come pick up your kid so you can continue your grocery shopping. I don't know about you all, but I don't have that kind of support in my life. And I'm very well connected and I have a lot of support, but I don't have somebody who's going to, at the drop of a hat any day, just show up and take care of my kids for me because I'm overwhelmed. I have tried to build that up where I can, but it just doesn't happen where it's immediate like that. But the big thing, like I said, is it's relationship based. I have heard from other people who have been trained in nurturing parenting that their facilitator trained them quite differently from me and was much more like route on the book. What I was trained in and why this program was appealing to me is because I worked with many families who have experienced lots of trauma, and we all know that hurt, ACEs, trauma occurs in relationships, and healing is needed to happen through relationships. And that is like a big thing for me. So I wanted to find a program that really worked on the relationship. Nurturing parenting is bare minimum like 2.5 months. So you have to actually build a relationship with the families that you're working with the people that you're working with. Nurturing parenting generally is 2 years of investment with this family and helping them learn things. This is not a quick Band-Aid thing that you're going to fix immediately. There's some, especially when we're talking about families where there's a lot of substance use, where there's a lot of domestic violence, where there are these big things that we know and huge ACEs that we know are going to perhaps lead to less good outcomes for the families. We have to come in and really take the time and resources and energy to change things. It is relationship based. I have to know that parent. I have to get their buy-in. I do a lot of motivational interviewing. Before they come to a class with me, we've already met each other like 4 or 5 times before class even starts. I do a lot of relationship building. I really try to figure out what are their kids like. I have their whole family come in for individual sessions. So I get to see how the family interacts together and what that looks like so that I can better support their needs. And the whole reason that it's relationship based is that every family is different, right? Every family has its own strengths and weaknesses and things like that. And I have to get to know that family and how it operates so that I can help them in the best way possible. That's my goal as their facilitators, to really get to know them and understand where is there a risk for maltreatment to be happening in the home, and how do I negate that? And I'll run groups that are different with different people, and I'll put different people in different groups because they're dealing with the same kind of issues, or because there's this one parent who's got this down, and in a group situation can really pull that out and help support the other parents. I did last year a dads only nurturing parenting group. It was phenomenal. It was so great. We did that for a long time, and now those dads a year later still get together with each other outside of the nurturing parenting group and have become each other's supports in town. That's the kind of success, that's the kind of things that we're trying to build up and make happen for our families, is get them those supports and help them build through relationship. And that's why I do nurturing parenting, because it does allow for so much flexibility. I can do a simple 2 month, like bare minimums, basic psychoeducation thing for those parents who are pretty on top of it and are really good and know what they're doing and just need a little bit better understanding of specific things. But I also have the availability and the capacity then to work very intensively with other families who really need a lot more wraparound support and services to change those dynamics, who want to change that, who want to get their kids back in their home, who are, you know, working with OCS and feeling like they're not listened to or acknowledged, or, you know, and we all know OCS is just overburdened with cases, and caseworkers just don't have the time to provide that kind of wraparound services for parents. And so that's one of the things that I like to try and provide. The other reason that nurturing parenting is good, like I said, is it has these like parenting questionnaires and things that I do with each parent before, during, and after their completion in the program. And so I can really see how their parenting beliefs are shifting and changing over time as they learn some skills, as they incorporate those into their lives, as things change. I mean, I have a parent, one of my favorite stories from my dad's group last year is I had this parent, and the first session we got into, the dads were all in there and they were talking about how the whole like idea of trans and LGBTQ is just blown out of proportion nowadays, and kids are being ridiculous, and you're a boy or you're a girl. And they just, you know, this is a group full of like fishermen dads and very older gentlemen who had very specific ideas of things. And personally, my alarm bells are going off in my head like, oh my God, how am I going to get these dads to understand what's going on? And, you know, one of the things I said to them in that first group is like, hey, you guys get to have your opinions, and I am not going to tell you can't parent your kids however you want to parent them. You get to do that. If you are going to make the determination that your kid is either a boy or a girl and identifies and matches their assigned sex at birth, that is your prerogative, and I am not going to tell you that you cannot do that. What I am going to tell you is that that is most likely going to mean that you will not have a relationship with your kid when they're older, because kids need to feel supported in whatever is going on for them, and you are immediately not supporting them. And one of the dads was like, I don't care what you say. If my kid comes up and says that they like girls or whatever, that's it. They're out of the house. They can figure it out on their own. They're kicked out of my house. And I said, that's fine. You can do that. I'm not going to tell you you can't kick your kid out of your house, even if they're telling you that at like 14. You can go ahead and do that. But what I am going to tell you is that you are not going to actually have any ability to influence your kid, and maybe not turning out that way if you shut that off and you kick them out immediately. You're going to have a lot more influence if you support your kid and you love them and you have conversations with them and you help them understand things and think about these things, and they know that they can talk to you about that. It's up to you. I'm not going to tell you can't do it. I'm certainly not going to like report you if you do that. It's not like a reportable thing, but it's not going to work out very well for you, I don't think. And this dad went home and he said that 2 days later, one of his kids, he was like reading through their text messages. They were like 15 and they had written that they had like a crush on a girl. And immediately he was like, I'm going to kick them out. They're done. Out of my house. Nope, I'm not having any of this crap. This is not happening. Get them out. Get them out. Get them out. That was his gut reaction. And then he just heard my voice in the back of his head. You're not going to be able to influence anything if that's your response. And so he's like, I took 2 days and I breathed and I didn't talk to my kid. And I took some time and then I went up to them and I asked them what they were feeling and what they were thinking. And we had a long conversation about it. And it totally made sense to me why they were feeling that way. They were getting attention from this person that they wanted. They were being supported and validated. But when we talked about it, they weren't actually like physically or romantically interested in them. And if I hadn't stopped, if I had gone off with what I wanted to do and just kicked them out of the house, that would have pushed them in all sorts of directions. And I wouldn't have ever realized that, you know, they can be free to be who they are and figure that out and have that safety in my house and do that. And that dad like changed it that week because he's like, I don't feel like I need to do this, but I'm going to try it because Tressa said to give it a try. And he came back and he was so happy and he felt like he had really connected with his kid. He felt closer to them. The kid, thank God, was able to educate dad a little bit on some of their beliefs and change dad's opinions a little bit, which I really, really liked. But that whole connection, that whole situation would not have occurred without that relationship building and me understanding like dads are going to do that. I got these whole group of dads together because they all had similar thought patterns like that. And I was like, this is going to be a chance for me to kind of push that and help them understand that things can change. So I like it. It includes those measurable data and stuff, which is really great for courts. When a patient or a family is done with me or even in the midst of working with me and they are dealing with OCS or they have custody issues or they have a PO or whatever court documentation, I can write letters of support for those family members of what the things that they're working on. And I can show real data to the courts about the way things have changed. It really breaks it down to looking at, I'll show you guys here. I'm going to go back to that one. The pre and post data really looks at 5 different categories in nurturing parenting. So we're looking at appropriate expectations. What is the parent's understanding of child development, right? If you think that your kid should be potty trained and go into the bathroom independently at 1.5 years old, and they're almost 3 and still having accidents and still doing all these things, you're going to get frustrated as hell. You're going to get pissed. Why the hell can't my kid do this thing that every other kid should be able to do? You should be potty trained at 1.5 years old. If that's your belief, that's your expectation, then you're going to get very dysregulated your kid when they're 3 years old and still pooping their pants. So the first thing that we look at is that child, what is their understanding of child development? Do they understand how things work? When we teach that for each single parent. Usually I start off my first class is, okay, we're going to do a deep dive into child development and where milestones happen and the fact that, guess what? Every single kid is unique and different. And just because usually milestones are reached at this point in time does not mean that that will happen with your children. They could be very delayed or very ahead of the game for a variety of reasons. And if you're sitting there comparing your kid to other kids, or to their siblings, it's going to make you a whole hell of a lot more frustrated. And the more frustrated you are, the more overwhelmed you are, the less you're going to be able to show up and be a good parent for your kid. You just can't. It doesn't work. The second thing that we look at is empathy. What does this parent understand? Can they really understand and get where their kid is coming from? like I was saying with those 3 R's, I really had to stop. I was like super mad at my son for getting on my case because he's telling me I'm calling him incessantly and I need to back off and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, God, I've talked to him. I've called him literally twice in one whole week. How is 2 times in 1 week incessant calling? I don't understand this. And if I didn't stop and just validate that for him, I wouldn't have gotten to his thinking level of brain and helped like work through that and ended the phone call with a good situation and us feeling connected. I know I wouldn't have gotten that because I did the exact opposite of that for about a week prior. And it always failed because I would be like, what do you mean? I'm not calling you incessantly. I've called you like 2 times this week. You're being insane. And instead I stopped and I said, okay, holy hell, I am so sorry. That would be overwhelming. I would be going crazy. Yeah, I should not be calling you incessantly. I don't know how you would feel like you could get anything else done. And he just immediately calmed down and was talking to me. Yeah, it's just like I try to do this, and then my phone is ringing, and then there's all these text messages, and I don't know how to respond to all these people. And he's 20, he's learning how to adult, and doctors' offices are calling him, and bill collectors are calling him. And yes, as an adult, we all know there's a whole lot more of communication that happens, and he was getting overwhelmed with that. And by taking myself out of it and just empathizing with how overwhelming it is to be a young adult and to learn how to adult, I was able to then move on and connect with him. But we look at those levels of empathy in our parents. Are they able to understand what's going on for their kids, to understand their kids' point of view? Or is that really an area where they struggle and they could use some strength in building up in getting better levels of empathy so that they're not feeling so overwhelmed with their kids? The third area that they look at is corporal punishment, their beliefs around corporal punishment, right? I'm sure you all know, I have heard so many times from parents, well, I got smacked and I got hit as a kid and I turned out fine. I don't understand what's going on, why we can't hit our kids anymore and do all these things. And so we really look at what are their belief systems around that. Because if you believe that it's okay to go hit your kid, you get frustrated, the chances of you hitting your kid, oh, heck of a lot higher than if you believe that that is absolutely not okay to do. Your belief system absolutely impacts how you parent and how you show up and what you do. So we really look at, what are your beliefs? It's okay. We don't care what they are. I'll share with me all your beliefs. I'll validate the hell out of any belief, even if it's a bad thing, because I can get you to change that belief if I build that relationship with you. And I have in many of my, this is what I have here is just one of the parents I've worked with in the last few years here. And you can see level C is, oops, I lost it there, sorry. Let me click that back in the way that I need to. Hold on. I clicked over. Okay. Now, oh, I gotta go screen share. Sorry. Please forgive me all. Okay. No. Let's see here. Okay, so C is belief in corporal punishment. You can see that this was a test I think I took with a parent. They filled out this questionnaire and talked to me about their beliefs in corporal punishment prior to engaging in the class. And the next test is, I think, maybe 2 months, 3 months later, in the midpoint of the group session, and they had already significantly changed their beliefs around corporeal punishment. And we hadn't even gotten into any of the bits on like discipline at all at this point in the class. So you can, if you're building those relationships with people, you can really shift some of those beliefs and ideas. And then the next category they really look at is your beliefs around family roles. Obviously, we have all met those kids who are like the parents in the family. They are super parentified and they are the ones taking care of everything. And we have, we all know how not great that can be for the kids or the families in those situations. And so we really dive into what are their beliefs around the roles of a parent. You know, if you believe that your kid is supposed to help take care of you and help you regulate when you're distressed, well, then you're going to keep coming to them for that and trying to get that, and they're not going to be able to meet that need because they're a child. And then you're going to get frustrated and upset, and things aren't going to work out as well. And then the last thing that we look at is their beliefs around power and control and independence, right? This is evidence-based. It is specifically designed for families where maltreatment might be occurring or happening. And where maltreatment is occurring or happening, there's often an unhealthy relationship somewhere in the family with domestic violence and power and control. And so we really look at what are their beliefs around power and control so that we can shift those beliefs and help them understand that a kid has just as much right and power and autonomy as the adult does. It's going to look different. Obviously, I'm going to step in the way and keep my kid from running out into a street when there are cars going by because they see a balloon on the other side and that's what they want. That is appropriate for me to step in and take that power away from them to run into the street and get hit over with a car. But not appropriate for me to do a lot of other things with kids that I might want to do. Like, you can't go to school or hang out with your friends because I'm mad at you. Kids who, nobody, not a single one of you, I mean, you guys tell me, I'm going to just do general poll. Who likes being told what to do all the time? I don't think anybody likes that. I don't think there's a single one of you who's like, oh yeah, please tell me what to do and how to live my life in every single way. And what do we do with kids all the time? Try to tell them what to do and how to live their lives. That is enraging. I don't care if you're 5, 15, 25, 35, 55, 85. Nobody wants to be told what to frickin' do. And that happens a lot with kids. So it's about giving our kids choices. It's about giving our kids the opportunity to say, I want to put on my boots and then my coat if we have to get dressed to go outside. I want to take a nap a little bit later today and stay up later tonight if that's a possibility for our family. I want to play on my iPad for 5 minutes and then do my homework. Sometimes that works. Sometimes, as we all know, our kids get way too addicted to the iPads and then they don't want to turn them off and it's a way bigger headache. But it's about giving those choices. Okay, you can't play on the iPad because it's literally designed to keep you addicted and on the iPad. So it's going to be really hard to turn it off and do your homework. But if you want to take 10 minutes and play outside or read a book or just decompress and do nothing before you start on your homework, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I know so many families, I've seen so many parents who are like, the kids get home from school, they've been on it at school, trying to take care of themselves, masking all this stuff and keeping it together at school for 6 hours. They get home and the parents are like, start on that homework right away. Oh my God, give me a little bit of breathing room. Let me play and be a kid for a little bit, and then I'll get into my homework. Sometimes changing those things can change the dynamics a little bit. And so we look at power and independence. How much is a parent willing to negotiate and change things with their kids? And that's the first test that we do, is this test right here on the left that looks at their beliefs in these different categories. And then the other thing that we look at is a lot about their family, their situation, right? Obviously, we know stressors and things are going to be a lot higher if you're homeless and you don't have food and you don't have a job and all these things, or you do have a job, but you're working, 3 different jobs just to provide for your family. And so you don't actually get to be a parent and be there with your kids and parent them. And it looks at your childhood, because guess what? We tend to parent in the exact ways that we were parented, or we tend to overcorrect and parent the exact opposite of the ways that we were parented. And none of those ever seems to quite find that middle ground that works out really well. I met many parents who are like, you know, my parents were always expecting me to do the chores in the house and do all this kind of stuff. And so then they're like, I'm never going to expect that of my kids. They can just be kids and do whatever they want to do. And then they have little kids and they feel overwhelmed and they're strung out because their kids don't ever clean anything and don't help out with anything in the household, because the parents felt such a pressure to do that from their parents that they overcorrected and wanted their kids to have freedom, but then they're burnt out and not able to show up and be a parent. And we look at basically the C is looking at what are the aces of each parent in the parenting dynamic. So we're looking at dad and moms, ideally, or if there's two moms, whoever the parents are of these kids, what are the aces that have been there? Because that's going to tell us how those parents were parented and help them understand things. And then we look at your knowledge of parenting skills and your particularly use of parenting skills. I can't tell you how many parents I work with who are amazing, wonderful, capable, insightful, great, caring, empathetic parents, but who are burnt the hell out and cannot then show up and be that wonderful, amazing, insightful, caring, kind, compassionate parent, because they're so stressed and overwhelmed and burnt out, and they're not taking care of their needs, and they have nothing left in their cup to give their kids. Just like they say on the flights, you know, you got to put on your own mask before you help others. It's so vitally important for parents to take care of themselves and connect with who they are so that they can show up for their kids. When I get a parent who comes in who is overwhelmed, my first thing is I just talk to them all about how I bet they are the most amazing, wonderful parent in the entire world. But even if I know if I am the most amazing, wonderful parent in the entire world, when I get burnt out, I can't show up for my kids, right? I've been really stressed at work in the last couple of weeks, been stressed in life with some stuff going on, and I wasn't taking care of myself as well as I could be. And that meant that when my son was getting cranky with me, I would start fighting back with him. And I had to put that aside and take care of myself so that I could remember, use the 3 R's, Tressa, help him regulate and then relate. And then you can reason with him and talk to him and understand and reach that thinking brain. But because I wasn't taking care of my needs and taking care of myself, I wasn't able to then show up, even though I would argue that I'm a fantastic parent. My kids would say differently, but that's okay. They can say that all they want. And I know a lot of these things. I know them cognitively. That doesn't mean that I actually practice them consistently all the time. One of the things that I love about doing nurturing parenting is that I am much more likely to practice these things consistently when I'm teaching them and working with families. It makes me a better parent to be doing this work for my kids, because I have that constant reminder of, okay, Tressa, you got to put yourself first. You got to take care of yourself. You got to deal with these things. You can't be teaching this crap if you can't do it yourself. So get it together, lady. And that's what I tend to do. But that's how it works. If you have families who you are interested in getting support with nurturing parenting or getting connected with me, that I just let you guys know how to get people scheduled or do that kind of stuff. Here at Front Street, it's maybe a little bit different than in some other places in the community because I have to be able to bill insurance and all that kind of stuff. And because I'm billing insurance, that means that I have to do some like intake paperwork and all these other appointments prior to them starting with nurturing parenting. So it is a little bit of a longer process. It's not like I can be like, hey, so I'm starting a group next week and you can just show up whenever. It is a little bit more intensive. But if you work with families that you want to refer over, you can contact me directly if you want. My information's on the screen. Or you can just call our front desk at Front Street Clinic and schedule an intake with me. What they'll do is our front desk will ask you a bunch of questions about the family and what's going on, what their situations are, if there's OCS involvement, if there's drug use. We're going to put those people to the top of the list as far as getting them scheduled as soon as possible with us. And we'll ask you some questions. And that first appointment is usually like an hour and a half, so that I have the time to really get to know the family and the situation and figure out where I can do resources and stuff. We here at Front Street are an integrated clinic. So we've got dental, behavioral health, psychiatric, and medical care all in one place, which I love so much. I love to have families who are doing that because all those things go hand in hand. And if I have a family who is dealing with medical things, it is so nice to be able to walk over to the provider's office and talk to their medical provider right away and be like, hey, what's going on with this? How do we work this out? How do we take care of that? It's fantastic, honestly. I love it. So we do all of that here too. We offer group, individual, and family sessions. We can do case management support, help people get supported with other things like that. And that is it. Does anybody have any questions or reflections or chiming in that they would like to share?
I'm going to go ahead and just stop the recording. So if anyone wants to ask a question that they don't want to be recorded,